According to Zelensky, Ukraine is fully prepared to initiate a counteroffensive. The expectations for Ukraine's upcoming counteroffensive are incredibly high, which poses a multitude of risks if the Kyiv forces are unable to make significant progress against the well-established Russian troops. The lack of impressive outcomes may have detrimental effects on Ukraine's global backing in the future, encouraging opponents of sustained military aid and providing advantages for Russia. The military aid promised to Ukraine by Western allies, which includes main battle tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, has been almost entirely delivered, raising the stakes for Ukrainians to succeed on the global stage. There is no guarantee of victory. Bill Astor, a former veteran of the US Air Force and senior fellow at the Eisenhower Media Network, noted that war is occasionally presented to the public as though it were a commodity. This approach is marked by an abundance of enthusiasm and optimism, but it is at odds with the facts that are frequently observed. Ukraine and its allies have long been asserting that the war would turn in their favor with the help of Western armor, including Germany's Leopard tanks and American-manufactured Stryker vehicles, which they believe to be significantly superior to Russian equipment. Despite successful counteroffensives in the Kherson and Kharkiv regions last year, Kyiv will not have the same advantage of surprise as Russian forces remain entrenched along the 600-mile front line in eastern Ukraine. As per military analysts, the counteroffensive, which is expected to continue until the end of autumn, is Ukraine's sole opportunity this year to demonstrate its abilities. According to Edward Arnold, a research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, Ukraine is in a race against time as the longer Russian forces continue their hold on the eastern territory, the higher the likelihood of a static war and eventual occupation. Arnold stated that the burden of responsibility does not rest entirely on their shoulders. However, they must fulfill enough obligations to ensure the continuation of support for a minimum of one more year. To this end, they must present a considerably significant performance to Russian forces within this year. The Western benefactors will then make the decision if it is adequate to justify continued support. To ensure that the military forces are sustained, maintain troop morale and garner support, the counteroffensive has been surrounded by a necessary level of hype. Despite efforts to manage expectations, even Ukraine has attempted to do so. In a recent interview with a Ukrainian news outlet, Oleksiy Reznikov, the defense minister of Ukraine, expressed that the expectations were excessively high. Reznikov addressed the desire for success, acknowledging that everyone longs for another triumph. However, he also cautioned allies against setting their expectations too high, which could lead to disappointment in the future. According to Reznikov, the craving for another win is a natural emotional response. Although Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated last month that his troops required additional time before initiating the offensive, analysts have evaluated that it may have already commenced and that the forces are currently examining potential weaknesses in the Russian lines. There is a high expectation among allies for substantial territorial expansion. They are hopeful that Ukraine will initiate an attack in the southeastern region of Zaporizhzhia, which would block the land bridge connecting the Crimean Peninsula. The annexation of the peninsula by Russia in 2014 has made it a critical supply hub for the Russian army. Additionally, they anticipate significant territorial gains in the eastern Donbas region, specifically in Luhansk or Donetsk. Satellite imagery has revealed the presence of Russian troops firmly established throughout the front, with a particularly concentrated presence in the Zaporizhzhia region and around Crimea. Some Western allies provided a tranche of advanced weapons and vehicles to Ukraine, partly with the hope that they could be utilized in a combined arms maneuver warfare strategy. By working in harmony with aircraft, vehicular armor, and infantry, Ukrainians would use a military tactic to penetrate Russia's fortifications, which, if executed properly, would catch the already struggling Russian forces off guard. As per the experts, executing combined arms maneuvers is no easy task and requires rigorous training. Even the most skilled armies can face challenges in coordinating effectively. According to John Kirby, the spokesperson for the White House National Security Council, the United States has made all possible efforts to equip Ukraine with the necessary resources to succeed, but he refrained from expressing confidence in Ukraine's ability to triumph. During a press briefing, Kirby emphasized that the expertise in addition to the resources is vital for success in the field. He stated, "It's not just the materials, but the knowledge of how to use them effectively." Furthermore, Kirby affirmed that the responsibility for any potential spring counteroffensive lies with President Zelensky. According to military analysts, Ukraine is predicted to make successful breakthroughs in some of the Russian lines, although the exact timing and the extent of the impact remain uncertain. According to Hein Goemans, director of the Peter D. Watson Center for Conflict and Cooperation at the University of Rochester, Western allies ought to view any breach of Russian lines as a triumph, rather than measuring success by territorial expansion. According to Goemans, demonstrating a consistent ability to achieve breakthroughs indicates that one will not be constrained in a protracted conflict. This in turn requires the ability to replicate such success in other areas. This will ultimately compel allies to reassess their expectations, which is essential for progress. Although minor victories have been achieved, they are not likely to attract much attention as the American public's support for military aid is gradually decreasing, and with the 2024 election looming, the stakes are high. In an effort to win the presidency, former President Trump is positioning himself as the candidate who can swiftly end the Ukraine war within 24 hours, while his GOP opponent, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who recently declared his 2024 campaign, has expressed doubts about ongoing American military aid. According to Politico, the counteroffensive's failure is a growing concern for the Biden administration in private. The concerns of officials are that the recent development will empower the critics who argue that Ukraine doesn't have the power to expel Russian forces from its land, and also provoke the politicians who demanded the US to supply advanced weapons like long-range artillery and fighter jets prior to the event. Russian President Vladimir Putin stands to gain from the disappointment of dashed hopes as well. A Store, a member of the Eisenhower media network, warned that if Ukraine were to fail, Putin could use this as evidence to support his agenda. Arnold, who is associated with the Royal United Services Institute, expressed his opinion in a much harsher manner. The reason behind the Western Allies' generous donations before the offensive, as he saw it, was their understanding of the high stakes involved in case of failure, Ukraine's freedom and its future position in the global order. Arnold expressed the significance of the offensive, stating that the outcome heavily relies on it. While it's essential not to overload the players with pressure, it's inevitable to feel the weight of the situation. To support our channel's growth and ensure broader awareness, kindly hit the like and subscribe buttons. This will help us reach more individuals and disseminate valuable information. Thank you in advance.